third and final speaker of the day, straight from Virginia's himself. Over the years, the debate whether the Pledge of Allegiance should be recited in our public schools has been argued many times. But what about private organizations and civic groups like Toastmasters? What do you think about the Pledge of Allegiance? Is it a mindless meditation or a deliberate act of patriotism? Is it politically incorrect or is it appropriate in our modern culture? Is it an unnecessary exercise or a vital part of our Toastmasters meeting? As you contemplate the importance of the Pledge of Allegiance to you and your Toastmasters Club, David will go over some of the major pro and con points. You'll get a chance to voice your opinion too, as David will field questions and comments afterwards. Please help me welcome David Flach to discuss the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, we start every single meeting by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. And tonight, I just want to go over a couple of points with you so we can all determine if the Pledge of Allegiance is one of the greatest speeches ever told that bears repeating every single night through eternity, or if it's an exercise that is not as well suited for a particular Toastmasters club. I'm going to go over just a couple of points, and then I invite you all to ask questions, say comments, and share this experience on this night that we go into executive committee, because what I'd like to do is to propose someone, maybe me, maybe someone else, to make a motion whether either to carry the Pledge of Allegiance to go forward or to consider replacing the Pledge of Allegiance with something else in order to start our meetings. So some of the points that I want to make tonight also is happen to do slightly on the, and I'm just going to touch very lightly in the interest of time. We could go very long and deep into this, but I just want to touch on a couple of points, and then maybe, if you care to, you can bring those points up later on after the speech. So we're going to take a look at a little bit about statism and nationalism. We're going to take a very short look at the phrase under God. We're going to take a very short look at the phrase liberty and justice for all. And then I'm going to suggest a couple of things that we might think about doing to begin our Toastmasters meeting instead of reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. First point, Toastmasters International is not an institution run by the state. And I have heard it argued directly, indirectly, by members and non-members, read on blogs and otherwise, that is a suggestion that organizations, private organizations not run by the state, should not have compulsory Pledge of Allegiance. And to that point, I will note that you'll look in the Toastmasters bylaws, and the Pledge of Allegiance is not a mandatory custom. It is something that is recommended by popular vote of that particular club, but it is not necessary. Now, some of the other people that are more proponents of the Pledge of Allegiance say that this is an undying act of patriotism. And to the act of patriotism, I will say that forced memorization and recital of a particular phrase does not build a patriot. If we all want to truly be patriots, we'll do something like our Captain Trevor Black did and serve our country in a more active stance. You can also look at criminal records and say that if we, as American citizens, truly want to be patriots, that we might be a little bit more law-abiding. But regardless of that fact also, that we're given with the freedoms of speech, the freedom to express ourselves differently, the freedom to choose one option over the other. That, I think, is the true spirit of patriotism. Under God. Many of you have probably read in many different forms or heard or perhaps participated in conversations about the phrase under God. It has many different meanings. It takes many different connotations. Atheist groups, agnostics, conscientious objectors, even Jehovah's Witness, which actually is a kind of a thought that I like about what they have to say, is they don't think that anything that is created by man should have anything in high regard as something that is created by God. So to take their nation or their flag and to put that at the same level of God for them is blasphemous, and they just will not participate in something like that. Other Christian groups believe that proposing that God is one deity that is honored and respected and prayed to by all religions is not congenial, is not conducive across all our religions. Some people also feel like the reference of under God is too generic, it's too widespread, it doesn't put as high as importance enough on God. Liberty and justice for all. And I think this is almost a little bit ironic because, please bear with me for a minute, but as a member of the White Man's Club, I've had a pretty easy run going in my life. But I think it's almost laughable that we so proudly recite that there is liberty and justice for all, and we have done so throughout all of our years of segregation and women's suffrage and outright denial of rights to citizens of this country. I have never had a problem reciting liberty and justice for all, but I would state that a large percentage of our population probably would if they would stop and think about those words for a moment. Toastmasters is also an international organization. We have many people who come here and visit. We have people who are non-citizens. So liberty and justice for all, who is all? Is it citizens? Is it non-citizens? Is it visitors? Who does it spread? That liberty and justice too. Who should be considered in those circumstances? We have had members in this club who were non-residents, permanent non-residents, I guess it is, I'm not really sure what the status was, but they were from another country and were not comfortable reciting our Pledge of Allegiance. I think that those people should be given fair consideration. What are some of the things that we could do instead? One of the things we could do to begin our meeting is recite the Toastmaster's Promise. Has anybody memorized the Toastmaster's Promise? How about the Toastmaster's Mission Statement? Has anyone memorized and is prepared to recite the Toastmaster's Mission Statement every single day? No. Maybe those are some things that might better serve a particular Toastmasters club. It's for your consideration anyway. We can also offer up an inspirational thought for the day. Or as a rotating member is charged with coming up with an inspirational thought, or a phrase, or a saying, like the greatest speeches ever told. We could introduce one of those thoughts every week. I want to sum up again by saying that I love the country. I think that we live in the greatest country in the world, and we are given some of the greatest freedoms in the world. And I deeply appreciate all of the work that everyone has done to create and to keep and to maintain what we have. And one of the things that we do have is the freedom to choose. So again, I would like to suggest that we make the motion tonight at our executive committee to consider whether or not to continue or not to continue the Pledge of Allegiance. I would now like to entertain questions and comments. Keith, I saw your hand go up.
Are you suggesting we pledge allegiance to David Flach of the United States of America?
No. I don't know where we're going with that. Teresa.
Another suggestion, one thing I've always thought would be great for this advanced club is an educational tip, a 1 or 2 minute educational tip, as opposed to using that time for that, because there's so much knowledge in this room.
Educational tip is a great idea. Joke of the day. Lots of good ideas. Yeah, there's a lot of good things that we can do. Anyone else? Rick?
Well, you know, the Pledge of Allegiance was changed several times.
It was.
Approximately 3 times, I think. And it would go along, and all of a sudden, they would add a God trust, and they would add something else. And so each time it was reviewed by Congress or whatever to bring up this as, since it was like a national thing, it had to be reviewed. And when they did that, everybody had to agree on it, and they all agreed that those extra words that they added made sense at the time. And I still think they make sense. I thought in your speech that you were going to give us some points about why you might not want to do it, and then give us some points why you would do it. But it seemed to change, because you never came across a point why you wanted to do it. You're basically only discussing the fact that you'd like to not have it.
That's a very fair point, and I think the approach that I was taking is that status quo will continue status quo. With a lack of resistance toward the motion, that the motion would simply carry forward. It's something that we have done since this club was founded. And I'm kind of thinking that unless there was an opposition vote, that it would simply carry forward. So I, being a catalyst, wanted to introduce the opposition vote. But thanks for pointing that out.